even if it wasn't.
Have a meeting with the Treasury Department.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's now 6:30. Shall we all rise to the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Judy Drake.
Here.
Lori Hemmings.
Here.
Christine Montag.
Here.
Joseph.
Here.
Ruth Groff.
Here. Looks like we didn't have anybody for privilege of the floor.
No.
Do I still have to wait a minute?
No. Not for that one.
Mike, you have a highway report? There's a...
You gotta let him sit down?
Oh, I just... There's a mic up there now, too.
There's a microphone? Seriously, got a hand? Okay, I'm trying to get to the right page. It's after you. It's before you. There we go. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Sit down here. We could be a little bit away from the crowd behind me. This is challenging here. All right, so my report this evening. Crew's been working on sign maintenance, repairing and replacing signs as needed around town, cutting for line of sight around the signs so you can see them. Tree and brush maintenance around town as well. We continue to work on that. Water and sewer maintenance, crews have worked to repair a 2-inch water service in Village Circle. We worked with Badger to identify the lead services, that there were no lead services down to McKinney's Point, which is awesome, fantastic. I might be skipping ahead here a little bit, but I did want to shout out to my crew. They had to hand dig inside a person's garage in order to get down to a service, and that's, not an easy task, obviously, but fantastic. We hit the mark here on the timeline of October when they're supposed to be in. Bullet Point is taking care of the paperwork to get that into the state on behalf of the town. And again, 0 lead services. We worked on a project with Tompkins County Soil and Water. As I say in here, special thanks to Angel and Brian. There's been a fair amount of erosion on that slope coming down through the water lines within that shoulder as well. So there's concern for the water main and overall line of sight as you look up through with all the sumac that is growing. It can be a very dangerous intersection if people, aren't stopping and looking twice, but the brush and whatnot there was an issue. And as we removed some of the brush, we saw the amount of erosion that was going on. So again, special thanks to Angel and Brian for helping us out with that project. It is a shared project cost. So the town covers the cost of the labor and equipment. Tompkins County Soil and Water covering the cost of the rock. We pay for it up front, and they'll reimburse us, which will be, talking with Angel, it should be next month's meeting for them, where we'll be reimbursed.
Was the erosion in the ditches?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, both sides, the backside and the roadside. Patched potholes around town as needed. Attending meetings, and they're all there. I guess I don't really want to run through them, but they're there for everyone to see. back page, because Debbie will remind me that I will forget that. So on the back page, thank you, Deb. Yeah, well, there we go. Right, we did work with the Village of Lansing doing the brush pickup. That's annual, where we pick up their brush in the fall. Thompson County Soil and Water, Department of Ithaca, City of Ithaca, sorry, Public Works, special thanks to them, absolutely. Their sign department's killer. Helped us out, saved us some money on a sign we needed. And Riddler Chase and Bergman for the new highway department, working towards schematic design development, and still, as always, attempting to save money and put together a good product that should serve the taxpayers long-term. So I think that's about it. If there's any questions, happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yes.
Very thorough. Pat, did you have anything?
Just our usual programming. This probably isn't in your packet, but it was in your boxes. We still have a plethora of programming going on. Some things have ended, like soccer and football. Just coming up on Trunk or Treat here, last I checked, we already had 140 cars registered for that. So please register for that if you would like to, as soon as possible. We did get our new boat washing station installed in Myers Park. That was some collaboration between several groups, us and Tompkins County Soil and Water. That is to control invasive species coming in and out of the lake. Hopefully boaters use that frequently. We did get the banners hung around town in several spots. I don't know if you've seen them. To me, they're a little underwhelming, but they are done. There's 2 up the road here. There's 1 down in the corner, 2 near the fire station, and 2 by the school. So we do have a permit to hang more at some point if we would wish to. We have permitting from Town Barn Road all the way to Myers Road. Camping is ended for the season, and boats in the marina, dry dock, and kayaks must be out by November 1st. That's basically all I got, unless someone has questions.
Any questions for Pat? Thank you, Pat. Debbie?
My report's in the packet, I don't have anything else.
Debbie, could you take a moment and speak to the open positions? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be doing that. This is your job, Ruth, not mine. I apologize. I was just wondering if we could promote the vacancies a little bit.
It's everybody's job, that's fine.
I should have asked first. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're fine.
Of the board council vacancies? You mean as to what vacancies there are? Let me ask you that. Jesse sent out a list. I didn't list them all here. I know there's some on the planning board, some on the ZBA, some on the ethics, some on the CAC, I think. Is that the 4 places?
Right.
I couldn't tell you exactly how many are
That's okay.
Give me a
on
moment.
which one.
I know zoning board has 1 full 5-year, and then the alternate has to reapply.
Okay, the planning board has 3 vacancies, 1 for a 7-year term and 2 for 1-year terms. Zoning Board of Appeals has 2 vacancies, 1 for a 5-year term and 1 for a 1-year term. Board of Ethics, 2 vacancies, 2, they're both 5-year terms. And Conservation Advisory Council has 4 vacancies, and all 4 are for 2-year terms. And the applications are due on the 21st, which I believe is Monday. And I asked Jessie today, and I think she's received 1 application so far.
For which board?
For Board of Ethics.
So that means everybody should talk to people they know and try to recruit. I know I've been talking to people,
Yeah.
not very successfully, apparently.
People can apply online, or they can stop in our office and get an application and just leave it with us, and we send it on to the, Jesse has the whole routine down, figured out where it goes and all that, so I think it goes to the head of the board to start with.
Thank you. Thank you. It's fine to ask questions.
Well, let me ask you a quick question while we're here. Do we want the whole board to interview all of these positions, or do we want to have a subgroup of this board interview people?
How did we do it last time?
We had a subgroup.
There's a discussion set up for.
Oh, there is later?
session
Okay.
Yeah.
To figure that out. I mean, you can talk about it now if you want to, but that
No,
was.
we'll keep with the agenda, sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask a quick question? You have unpaid water and sewer bills. Is this the typical amount, or is this high or low typically?
It's about the same,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
I did forgot one thing that I spoke with you about today, and it involves the brush and mulching processing area. And so I've been working with Dave and Guy on looking at 104 Auburn Road for the spot for consideration for the future spot for brush and mulch processing for the town. So we're investigating that to see if that can be the long-term spot. And we'll hopefully have some options for the board to consider, maybe option A, option B, with considering, I don't know how to word this other than the eyesore. My concern is making sure that it is not an eyesore for the town of Lansing, but yeah, we have a great team here working on it. Thanks to Guy for looking at a lot. He knows that land well and the pitfalls of it, so, and Dave as well. So hopefully by next month I'll have some information for you guys.
That'd be great, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Library report is in the packet, the service is in the packet. Where am I? So we're down to, and you said Mike Stigler sent his in, right?
Yes. I put, there's several that are just individual reports on the back table.
Okay.
They'll put in the permanent minutes, but I just got everything way too late to.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie, for doing that. All right, we're on to the consent agenda. There aren't that many on here right now, but, so I'll just go ahead and read them. First one is the resolution authorizing the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Working Group to draft a request for proposal and interview consultants. B, the resolution accepting the 2023 year-end independent outside financial report and audit of town of operations, procedures, funds, cash handling procedures, and accounts. C is the resolution hiring part-time employee in town clerk office. Resolution authorizing map plan for CWD improvements to Teeter Road subdivision. And C, resolution approving audit and budget modification and supervisor's report.
I'll move it.
Second.
Judy Drake.
Aye.
Lori Hemmings.
Aye.
Christine Montag.
Aye.
Joseph Wetmore.
Aye.
Ruth Brock.
Aye. Now we're on to the resolution memorializing changes to tentative budget and authorizing preparation and filing of preliminary budget. Do you have any?
Do you want to talk about the changes you
We
made?
usually have a first and a second.
I'll move it.
Second.
Is it you? Lori?
Yes.
Lori, yeah.
I was just wondering if we had to discuss it first.
We have to move it first and then we discuss it. It's okay.
It's been a long day.
I know, same for her. She had to prompt me, so I went to bed. So any discussion on it? And maybe Jen would like to kind of go through the changes from the last time we looked at it? Or do you want us to just ask questions?
We didn't have very many changes here. The first two were for the records management budget. We were increasing the personnel services line for payroll from nothing in there to $10,000. This would be to hire a part-time worker. $5,000 of that $10,000 came from the contractual line, and then we added a $5,000. So it's a $5,000 addition to the budget from last month. And in your Excel printouts that we gave you, if you are going along, the yellow highlighter section is from September's budget meeting. The orange is these new changes. So the next one down would be for the library reading program. We already had this program with the money, I think it was $5,000 in our budget, but we had it under library custodial, which would mean that, we were housing the library and that we ran it, which we don't, so we're just moving it to programs where it belongs. No change on the budget. We've added $50,000 to code A8790.400, natural resources contractual, and this is for the trails comprehensive plan, and we have an equal amount of revenue on the other side from that, from the grant.
Quick question, do we want to add the 12,000 that we just got approved today, I guess, into that line? Same thing, just put those two in, 12,000 coming in, 12,000 to spend?
If you need to, we can add that if we need to.
It's 12,000, 12,500, I forget the exact amount. 12,000 even, okay.
Sorry, what was that for?
That's to do a feasibility study to do a trail from Town Center all the way to Myers Park.
Thank you.
It was provided by the Tompkins County Tourism
Yes.
Department.
That was 12,000, you said?
12,000 even, yes.
Okay, so we'll add that on both sides, on the
Yeah.
expenditure and the revenue side.
Thank you, we just got that approved today, so.
So that was it for the general fund expenditures for changes. So the next code we have here is A1001, which is the real property taxes. And there's an increase in here from $2,203,362 to the $2,236,178. And Ruth could speak to that better than I could if you have questions.
Yeah, it was basically a reclassification from the sales tax and it was offset, so I think in total it didn't change much. It was just, we took sales tax out of some funds, but it was just a reclass of the two different types of revenue sources.
Right underneath that is the payment in lieu of taxes. That automatically needed to change when we updated the tax levy, because those are based on our tax rates. Right underneath that is the sales tax, which Ruth just talked about. We'd be decreasing the general fund sales tax from $629,000 to $100,000. And A2707, that's where that parks grant was put for the $50,000, and we will add the $12,000 to that too. In the B general fund, we've increased the sales tax allocation there from $66,000 to $200,000. And that is it for the B fund. In the DA fund, our highway townwide, we have increased our machinery contractual line from $245,000 to $300,000. And this is just reflective of actual expenditures that are coming through that fund. Same with the DA 5142-400 snow removal contractual. This is increased from $214,297 to $269,297. I think together that's a total of $100,000 addition to that fund. And that's on the expenditure side for the DA fund. Right underneath there is three on the revenue side for the DA fund. The property tax amount in this fund did decrease a small portion. It's same with the allocation that Ruth talked about. So that automatically changes the payment in lieu of taxes a tiny bit, and then sales tax in our DA fund would be increasing from $165,000 to $200,000. In the DB highway fund, the only change in there would be an increase in sales tax from $940,000 to $1.3 million. We had two changes in the lighting district number 2, which is Warren Road. Based on the electrical costs this year, where we're at right now, we thought it would be best to increase the contractual line in that from $7,140 to $9,500. So that's on the expenditure side. On the opposite revenue side, we just increased the taxes that are taken in to balance that budget. So we increased it from $7,140 to $9,500. Same scenario in the lighting district number 3, Lake Watch lighting. We increased the contractual amount there from $12,950 to $15,600, and it's the electrical costs again. But in order to keep that budget balanced, we increased the property taxes from $16,500 to $19,150. And then the last 3 that are on here, the first 2 are for sewer district number 1, which is Warren Road. We got some updated unit numbers from the county at the last minute, so we updated those budgets just a tiny bit based on the updated units. And that's the same thing for sewer district number 3, Cherry Road. That very small decrease in the assessment there is just based on updated units that we got from the county.
Thank you, Jen. By the way, thank you for all the work that you've done on this. You did a superb job, and I really appreciate it. You did a great job. So to kind of further explain the changes in those taxes, is that when you remember last time I had a lot, trying to get all the budgets up, or all the funds up to where they should be. And I realized when I did that, I did a 5-year forecast and realized that it was going to deplete the B and the DB funds if we did that. So I had to just everything was just a reallocation. The total overall revenue didn't change much. So it was just a reallocation between the funds and the sales tax. So, are there any questions on any of these changes?
Does that represent, I know you're talking about it as a reallocation, but does that represent any meaningful change in the actual taxes we're asking for?
In the
taxes?
In the tax, yeah, in the levy.
Yeah.
No, overall it'll be still the same.
Okay.
I just had to reallocate it. Right? I don't think I changed it much, did I? Because I still came out with the same tax rate as we had before.
Tax rate, but it changes the levy.
Right.
The levy did increase. So your tax, I believe your tax rate is staying the same from last year, but your tax levy, the amount that you're taking in on tax bills is going up 19.25%.
Right. But I mean, the change from the last time, I don't think it changed, did it? If it did, it wasn't much.
Are you saying it didn't change from the last draft to this draft?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it went from 17.5
That's
to
right.
19.25.
But combined. Okay, anyway, I stand corrected. I can't remember my own work.
Quick question, we added 2 drainage districts to our system at our last meeting, are they reflected in the budget? Okay. I know it's kind of last minute, things getting shuffled in there, makes it easy for you guys.
They were the first, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and this still leaves us, sorry, not reaching our fund balance.
Right.
At this point. How did your 5-year projection work out to get us to reaching?
It got us there by 2030.
2030.
No, I'm sorry, by 2028.
Okay.
Depends on which fund you're looking at, but with the A fund, it got us there by 2028.
Okay. And was that with no tax increases? Is that was, or?
No, it will be a tax increase.
Right, just not.
Tax rate increase, yes. Yes, our fund balances need to get back up to the point where we are in compliance with our town policy, which is the fund balances should be 25% of the total annual expenditures. And B fund and the DB fund are fine, but they rely solely on sales tax, which we don't have any control over. The A and B, we're going to have to gradually bring the rate up over the course of the next few years to get us in compliance and get us to the point where we can start taking care of some of the projects that need to be done around town, like replacing the bathrooms down at Myers Park, some things like that. We're having water line breaks, we need to replace those. So a lot of things that are infrastructure that is aging out and needs to be replaced, we'll be able to do it once we get our funds back up to where they need to be.
On your spreadsheet, there is at the end of each fund, like you have your, appropriations and you have your revenue. On the last line of each fund, there is a little purple line, and that is going to show you what 25% of the fund balance is, what the actual number is. What's not on there is the percentage of where we're at with that. We reached the 25% now. That is on there, just for a reference as you look at this.
That's great, thank you. I appreciate you doing that.
These spreadsheets are really great. They really give a lot of information.
Thank you.
So it seems like we have some serious challenges
We do.
as we move forward if we are not raising tax rate this year. We're going to have to do some significant tax rate increases in future years, but I believe from the email from Jay Franklin that they're not going to be doing an assessment increase next year, or wasn't anticipated.
That's what, yes,
So they might not get an assessment change, but we're going to have a tax rate change.
correct.
Is there any way to do this slowly and surely? I mean, because we also we're going to be adding the Public Works garage expansion. We definitely have some other capital projects that need to be done. Just worried about us getting to the same point next year and not being able to yet again do any of these projects because we don't have the funds to do them. So, and I know bonding can kind of come into this discussion too, but as we know with the Public Works, we have to add in the bond payment, which is another large number. So I don't know if we have any answers, but I mean,
Well, we've got 3 major solar projects that are coming in, and I personally am looking to take the money that we get as a host community agreement and put that towards the parks things that we've been talking about doing for a long term. It's perfect for kind of one-time payments to do one-time projects. And I know those have been sitting on the table for a long time, and I'm really looking at that money and saying that's where it goes.
And I'm hoping to see some, I don't know if it'll be next year, but possibly, but for sure by the following year, right, Joe? What do you?
I would think so, yeah, because we've gotten we got notice that Yellow Barn has completed their application, so their application's been deemed complete, so now there's a clicking clock that will say it has to be approved within a certain amount of time, and I don't remember what that timeline is, but it's within a year or so. So we'll have a host community agreement by then, we'll have a highway agreement by then, and we'll have increased taxes by then from them as well.
Yeah, I think those community host agreements will help tremendously. And there'll be several of them over the next few years coming in, so.
Well, this is exactly what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to fund the community to kind of balance the negative impacts they have, to put positive ones, and I can't think of a better way to, take away visual than to increase our park system and make it better. You're agreeing with me, right, Pat?
Okay, so any other questions on the budget?
I do want to comment, though,
Yeah.
just to clarify that, so the projects that Joe was talking about are not in this budget.
Right.
So they don't, those things getting done is great, but it does not, to Judy's question, get us closer to the fund balance issues.
Like, it covers some of the projects that we've got on our list to do, and that's what I'm saying.
But those projects aren't in the budget.
They're not in the budget at the moment, yes.
So, yeah, so in that regard, that's a wash outside of what you're looking at in the budget, I guess what my point is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so back to your question too, but thank you, that's absolutely correct. We need to make sure we're keeping our apples and oranges here. But there will be an increase next year for the DPW building, and as well as trying to get our funds back up to where they need to be. So it'll be kind of a double hit next year.
For 26.
Right.
Yeah.
26, correct. Thank you. Yeah, not next year, 26. Yeah. Okay. And I do want to get the 5-year forecast that I put together, and I think I shared it with you all. It was very high level, and it was based purely on average growth for each line item. And I would like to sit down with the department heads and get their input to get a reality check on that. And then at some point within the next few months, I'd like to get that up to the board for, acceptance as the formal forecast, which, will change periodically. It's not set in stone like anything else, but I want to do that. I also want to get the capital projects plan formalized as well. So hopefully those will be done within the next few months. And then we'll have better tools to work with when it comes budget time next year. Okay. All right.
It's been helpful to have the drafts of them while we're going through this budget season to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. So thank you. And I know staff's been working on those pretty hard as well, so I appreciate all the work that's gone into this year's budget cycle from everybody.
I tell you, Jen and Mary Ellen have just done a fabulous job. Keep me honest. When I look at things the wrong way, and I'm like, no, that's not the way it was. So I appreciate it. So are there any other comments?
Thank you for the spreadsheet. It's really, really, really helpful.
And you've got, I did email it to everybody, it just wasn't updated fully until just not too long ago.
So I'm moving to do it with a couple of additions. Was it one or two small additions that we said here?
To add the grant.
To add the grant, was there another one? I can't
It'll
remember.
be 2 additions, one on the expenditure side, one on the revenue
Yeah.
side.
Right. So do you move it?
I did.
Second.
I already have Lori for the second.
That was from earlier, right?
Very moved and seconded.
We're just clarifying that it's been amended slightly.
I just wanted to know right here.
It's a budget neutral amendment, but
Okay, ready for the vote? Judy Drake,
Aye.
Lori Hemmings,
Aye.
Christine Montag,
Aye.
Joseph Wetmore,
aye.
Ruth Croft.
Aye.
And hopefully we'll be amending it in December when we get that big grant from the Department of State to do our zoning.
All right. A resolution scheduling a public hearing for special districts proposed 2025 budgets.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
Judy Drake,
Aye.
Lori Hemmings,
Aye.
Christine Montag,
Aye.
Joseph Wetmore,
Aye.
Ruth Goff,
Aye. And we have a resolution scheduling a public hearing for the town preliminary budget for 2025.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Oh, I'm sorry, any discussion? I said it in my mind, I just didn't say it out loud.
Judy Drake,
Aye.
Lori Hemmings,
Aye.
Christine Montag,
Aye.
Ruth Goff,
Aye.
I vote aye too.
did I miss you?
You said it in your mind.
Yeah, I said it in my mind.
She knew I was going to disprove it.
Your name's right. Sorry.
It's okay.
Board member reports. Judy, did you have anything to report?
Sorry for not getting a report in. Just more work on negotiations, I think has been the biggest thing.
Okay. And Lori?
So I've been approached by a couple of community members about the rising costs of rent in Lansing. And I've been continuing to do some research on this topic. I submitted my report last time, and then I also interviewed an individual who had some really interesting things to say about what alternatives might be to, workable alternatives to rent controls. But we are seeing, as people have talked to me, members of the community who are having their landlords raise their rents quite a lot in response to the school taxes and the increased assessment. So it seems to me that it is something that it is in the interest of the board to look into, because we have, in our comprehensive plan already acknowledged that we have a problem, and that everybody has a problem with affordable housing. And if there's anything that this board can do to help the community, I think it's right to do it. It's interesting, as I've been going through and doing research, quite a lot of the data gathered around rent controls has been gathered by homeowners associations and real estate. And so their interest in, while the data is really pretty good, their interest in the topic is not necessarily entirely objective. So while quite a lot of economic proposals sort of say that rent controls create sometimes more problems than they solve, which is why I've been looking out for alternative solutions to that. So that's really what I've been working on in terms of my report. I still don't have any answers. It's a very complicated problem, but I would be glad to have any advice from the staff or ideas from the other members of the board or the community about this subject.
Thank you. I think that's really great that you're doing that. Thank you. Christine, I noticed your report's in the packet. Did you have anything to add?
The report was mostly about Lansing Housing Authority and the Woods Edge thing, and they also have sort of an issue now with the roof that they need to fix right away. So they're looking at hiring someone. They're expecting a big settlement from a class action lawsuit to come in. They were hoping to use that to pay for the new roof, but they need to fix it right away. So they're looking at doing it with the money they have.
Thank you. Joe?
Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about the 3 solar facilities that we've got. These are the industrial level ones that are coming in. So like I said, Yellow Barn has been deemed complete. We've gotten some questions from the one up by the power station, and then we've got a third one that we know is planning on putting in an application towards the end of this year. Yellow Barn, we had a kind of ad hoc committee working on it that was mostly staff and consultants and a couple of board members. Do we want to continue with that pattern for the other 2 facilities? Do we want to send this to the project committee? How do we want to deal with those? Because they're starting to come up, and we need to have a plan of action of how we deal with them. And I think staff wants a little bit of help in being able to say when they want to engage with these companies and when they don't, because we've seen with Yellow Barn, they can take up a lot of staff time asking question after question after question of staff and having our staff basically do their work for them. And I think we need to help staff with directions to be able to say, no, you don't have to answer all these questions from these people until a certain point. Probably want to do that at committee level, and I think we should decide how we want to deal with this at this point, since we've got 2 more coming and Yellow Barn, in the process. Do we want to continue with that same group dealing with all these solar facilities, or do we want to send it to one of our regular committees?
Good questions. Who was working on it before? Who were the members and staff?
It's me and Ruth, and then John from planning. Guy's been attending many of the meetings, and then we've got Harder Seacrest bringing in legal, and we have Labella bringing in engineering. And then with Yellow Barn, we also have the folks from Groton, since it's a joint project between the 2 towns. These other 2 are wholly within Lansing, so obviously Groton wouldn't take part in that.
So Joe, what I hear you saying is we need to answer sort of 2 questions, which is provide some guidance on what is the responsibility of the staff in terms of answering their questions, and what is the responsibility of the project builder, if you will, and then also to figure out who in Lansing is responsible for providing that guidance. Is that correct?
Yeah, normally what happens is somebody comes to the town with a project, and it goes through the planning department, they look it over, they make decisions as to what happens, and that goes to the planning board maybe, or maybe it goes straight from staff, depending on the size and scale of the project. This one's kind of different because we have very little say over the project itself. We have 3 elements of input that we really can do. The first one is the host community agreement. That's in the law that says they have to have one of those. There's the highway use agreements. Again, they have to put together something with us. And the third one is they will look at the town laws and say, we're in compliance with these and we'd like a variance for those. And we have to look it over and see that we agree that when they say we're in compliance with this part of the law, that the town actually agrees they're in compliance with it, and that there aren't laws that they've ignored and things like that. So those are the 3 elements that we have in this particular instance, and all the rest of the stuff we normally do is not part of these kind of projects.
So I guess what I'm trying to understand better is where the staff are getting asked for more questions. Maybe you guys want to talk about this a little bit.
Well, John's not here, he's the one that
Okay,
gets
yeah,
most
he
of
really
the...
is getting most of it, okay.
Well, basically what happens is these consultants will go to both John, they'll go to Harder Seacrest, they'll go to Labella, and they'll say, what do you think of this, what do you want to do that? And end up running up our bill because they want our staff to do the work that they should be doing in-house, maybe these are legitimate questions, but there's no sorting process going in. And so our bill's getting run up by these various companies, and we need somebody within the town who's watching it and putting the brakes on some of it. We need some policies to help staff say, that's not our job, it's your job to figure that out. Or to answer it, depending on what it is. But we need more guideline, because right now, we have no guidelines. It's running up bills that are not in control of the town, and I'm trying to put a stop to that.
Right. That makes sense to me. I'd like some more guidance from John and the planning department about what they would feel comfortable handing back, or what we should create policies for, to to say, this is your responsibility, this is our responsibility. And I don't feel like I've got enough information right now to help with that.
That sounds fair. How about if we send this to the code committee and say, give us a suggestion for our next meeting? Because I do want to get this under control because it's been out of control to now.
Sure.
Does that sound good? Does that sound appropriate?
That's up to you. If you're going to adopt a policy or a code, that would be one place it could start.
That sounds like a good place to start to me. Anyone's got any better ideas?
Okay, so I think it's next week.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda and see if we can't get this moving, because it's going to move fast from now on. Expect a lot of stuff happening in the next 2 years.
I would just say it kind of makes sense to keep the same people working on it, so they don't have to, I just know if I jumped on something, I would have a lot to learn really quickly, so it would slow things down. So it makes sense to keep the same people working, because they got to be somewhat similar.
Yeah. I definitely would want to stay involved, because I've been heavily involved up until now, and so we would make adjustments if we send it to a particular committee to have me be a part of that.
So would this committee or whatever group comes together, would they then draft the guidance that you would give to the company so that the company would know, first we go to this guy and we don't go to all these other people? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
John's already starting that kind of process because he's feeling overwhelmed with companies asking him the same questions over and over again to see if they'll change.
And then they go to somebody else and then we pay for that person's bill too,
yes,
yeah?
exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so that's on the agenda for the next meeting then. Good one. Thank you, Joe.
So one of the things, as I'm thinking about what I hear you saying, and John isn't here to talk about it, but of answering the same question over and over again, or to see if they'll change, that we might change, that one thing we could do is put some guidance on the website with the frequently asked questions and say, this is our answer.
John's working on something
Okay.
similar to say, here's the parts of the code that you're probably going to be dealing with, here's our answers to the typical questions on it, here's our answers, we've given them to you, we're not going to do anything until you have a complete application.
Right.
Type thing, because we spent 2 years talking with Yellow Barn before they even put their application in, spent a ton of staff time, ton of consultant time, and really didn't get anything out of the process.
Except that we learned a lesson.
Well, this is why I'm coming and saying, I don't want to do this with the next 2 projects. I've done it once, it didn't work, I want to make it different.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
I didn't really have a report this time because I've been working a lot on budget. So, I mean, I have attended meetings and I will put a report together, but that's what I've been working on this month. Okay, ready for a work session we have on here the board and committee applicant interviews, which we started to discuss, but we need to determine how we're going to do that. Are we going to assign 2 people to do the interviews, so we do not have to have a special board meeting, which I think is what we've done in the past, which makes the most sense.
What I remember from the process last time is that it worked quite well. We got a couple of experienced members from the committees, and then like 2 of them, and then whoever was the closest staff person, and then 2 members of the board. And that created a 5-person committee that seemed to do a really nice job of getting us both the technical information and technical questions, and also representing the community's interest as well. And I mean, we had really fantastic applicants last time. I remember they were all pretty qualified, and it was a very tough choice. But I think that process, I found that to be really quite good, and that the discussions and the interview process seemed to be really right on, focusing on the questions that were relevant to the work.
Okay, so do we want to go ahead and appoint the 2 members that will work on it, or?
Well, we've got several different committees,
Yeah.
and it won't be the same 2 members for each committee.
What I have on my notes is
planning board, ZBA, CAC,
And ethics.
and the ethics. I'm out, on the CAC, I'm pretty sure Jesse said that there was 2 people that applied prior that weren't selected, and so she has sent information to them. The CAC, somebody reached out to her from the CAC and said that they wanted to have those people know that they could apply again, or we have their application. I'm not sure exactly what happened with that, but that there was 2 prior applications, so there's 2 possible applications for CAC, and we've had just 1 for the Board of Ethics.
I think there was one person on the planning board that applied and did not get accepted, that we might be able to reach out to them as well. If I remember.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I think we actually had a decision there.
Yeah, we did. So there might be one potential applicant there.
So do you want us to figure that out, or somebody else is going to figure that out, or?
See if I can remember and look it up.
We could decide which 2 people would be on each one.
Yeah.
I think I did the zoning board last time with maybe Joe, but then Judy had to come, I think, yeah.
I think last time Judy was going to do ZBA. I don't know if you did, but I just remember you said you wanted
Yeah,
to.
just you and I, Kristen.
Okay,
Yeah.
So is that what you want? That's who did it last year, or that's who wants to do it this year?
I could do it again,
For ZBA?
sure,
Okay.
So that's Judy and Christine.
yeah.
I'd be happy to do any of them, but I'm particularly happy to do planning.
Well, why don't we do planning together?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Joe and,
Because I think once these committees are selected, the people are selected for the committees, I believe Jessie will also send the applications out to you, or at least whomever she's sending them to will know who
Yeah.
else needs to go to.
the CAC, I'll be glad to do that one. Anybody else?
I'd be happy to help with that.
Okay.
Was that you, Lori?
Yes.
I could,
And then we get ethics.
I could do that one.
I'll do it with Christine.
Okay, Judy. And then we do have,
Well, let me ask a quick question. Do we have kind of standard questions that we asked last time for all of these that we can just reuse?
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Somebody has those? I don't know if I can find them easily for,
I don't know that we had any ethics ones last time, though, did we?
No, we didn't.
I don't remember doing an ethics one, just
Maybe-
zoning board and zoning board.
Maybe there weren't any open positions last year. I don't remember without looking
I
at it.
don't think there were.
okay, well,
Do we follow up at all with, like, because I know zoning board, the current alternate is interested in, reminding them to fill out an application. Is
I
there
know-
any contact back of like, hey, we haven't gotten it yet?
I know we've got
Not
2.
from our office,
Okay.
because we don't know we send out the initial, letting everybody know, I guess, type thing is the only way I can think to say it, but it seems like the chair of the ZBA would possibly reach out to their members, like you're saying, like there's an alternate, and say, hey, we'd like you to reapply, make sure you do that, or whatever.
We talked about it last week at the meeting.
Okay. I mean, it seems like it would be the chairs, at this point, it would be the chairs that would also try to help find people for their committees.
Do we want to push that deadline back a couple of weeks because we've got one application and it seems like if we say everything's done Monday, we're going to have one application in. I know I could talk to the planning board at its next meeting. I know Larry doesn't want to be reappointed, so there's definitely a vacancy there. I don't know if the alternates want to move up into his position or keep into their positions. But I can ask at the meeting, but certainly not by the Monday deadline.
Okay, so, well, any applications we get after that, we're certainly going to take them anyways. Whether we say the deadline's the 21st and we get them on the 30th, if you haven't had your interview things yet, we're going to do
Okay.
that. I think the reason that was set was because we need to ideally, we need to have the interviews done in November so that in December, all these people are all in place for January. They need to be, at the December meeting, they should be appointed to these committees, so come January 1st, they can act in their roles. And as far as your comment about the alternates, in past years, not last year, or maybe the year before, when things were kind of all changing around here, but before that, it was very common practice that the alternate, if they wanted to, when the board wanted to, they just moved up to the vacant position. The new rules have changed all that, and everybody has to now do a new application and
Right.
be interviewed, so.
Yes, I just don't know what the intent is of the two board members, whether they want to stay as alternates, whether they want to move up, which is the first question, or whether they want to stay at all.
Oh, I was going to say, if they haven't submitted an application, I would be wondering if they even want to stay.
I think they didn't realize they had to put an application in.
Okay, then the chair of those committees should be
Yes.
telling them.
Yeah, well, I will be telling them.
Okay.
So the other one we need to talk about is we needed a interview group or committee for the justice. And Laura, you had
I'd
said
be happy to.
you'd be happy to do it, so it'll be you and me.
I'm sorry, was that Lori and
Yes.
Ruth?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you're going to bring in somebody else as well, as part of that group?
Yeah, I'm going to be bringing in the gentleman that you recommended.
Oh, Luke Fischel,
Yeah. I
I'm
haven't contacted him yet, but
I'm butchering his name. He's a local defense attorney who came in, I've known him for years. He's a really good, solid person. And he came in worried that we didn't have anybody applying. So I know he's very interested in, who we get. And I think he would bring in a perspective that we don't have.
I think it would be really important to have somebody with legal qualifications to be part of that interview process in order to make sure that we're, asking the right questions.
He was worried that we got people applying who have the right legal qualifications, so I think he's a good fit.
So he's going to be on the interview committee?
Yeah.
So make sure I'm getting this straight, okay.
Well, he's going to be asked to be on it. He hasn't agreed yet.
talked to him yet.
Oh, okay.
We would like him to. But we need to do those interviews sooner than later because they have to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoever gets it will have training in December.
Are you going to set for any of these committees, are you going to set any dates of when you are going to do the interviews?
I think we have to wait until if we have applicants and see if we can drum some things up, because we don't have any applicants.
Okay. So you'll just kind of do that on your own, behind the scenes or whatever? Okay, that's fine.
Last time the interviews got set up really fast because, of course, we were doing them in January and we had seats open and had a brand-new board and had to fill it. But, yeah, I think we can actually put things together pretty quickly if we need to.
And I have a list of questions that was provided to me for the justice, so
I saw that.
we shall be, they keep changing it too, it's been updated. So that's good. So we've got those committees organized. Any other questions on that issue? Comments, concerns? The town organizational chart. It's in your packet. I'm going to let Judy talk to this one because she's kind of been instrumental in having this become a reality, hopefully.
Yeah. So starting to work on the, I don't know what comes first, Public Works Department draft local law, but basically wanted to put something together. We've had different drafts and such. So kind of worked on this on the side, putting together the different departments, how they correlate together, and then moving forward on especially the discussion of what would happen with Parks and Recreation Department and Public Works Department if we go in that avenue. I'm hoping people can read it as we go down. It starts with the citizens, goes to the town board and town supervisors, decision makers, and then there's the three kind of external, also elected town courts, town clerk department, and public works, highway superintendent. And then we have the town supervisor. I have that kind of listed as an administrative day-to-day oversight. And that's with working with the bookkeeper to the supervisor, accountant, historian, and such. Just to give you the titles and such in black are the titles that we have now. Titles in blue could be possible titles connected to civil service. The four red ones were some avenues that when we were talking with staff, it sounded like they were positions that we don't have now, but they were things that we may need in the future sooner rather than later. IT and network came up, so somebody to run the network. Just proposing that would go under the town supervisor, administrative kind of function, under Parks and Recreation. We saw probably a future need for an assistant director of recreation. Pat has help on the motor equipment labor side of things, but a little bit more help on the administrative aspect of the contracts. And then the other kind of avenue that we saw was the facility maintenance for this facility, the Public Works, the parks, just somebody to really manage. It's like the whole issue that came up with the HVAC. We needed somebody to really manage that, so we're not pulling staff from the stuff that they're already doing. So those were the ones in red. Or kind of new ones. I didn't put it in here, if we wanted to add another information aide or another part-time position. If the title was already there, I didn't add additional numbers. This is a fluid document. These are, not something that's set in stone today and it never changes. As we add, like Debbie just added another information aide or part-time information aide, it still falls in the structure the way it is. But the ones in red were things that we don't have now in any way, shape, or form. They're not, so. Some of the titles in black are what we have now, titles in blue are possible. So that was some possibility aspects. I can answer questions. I don't know if I've described enough. Certainly staff can help me out.
I guess the two delineations that I think should be kind of coded into this somehow is the supervisor has 3 people that they get to choose. Their executive assistant, their accountant, and the historian. They get to choose them. The town board can't say no to that person. Whereas all the rest of the staff, the town board can say yes or no. So I think those ought to be highlighted. And what I'm not clear in this chart is who's part of the Highway Association and how that would fit into this chart.
Can I address one thing though?
Yeah.
As far as under the supervisor, the accountant position is a competitive position. That stays. Bookkeepers and supervisors not competitive. That can be changed, appointed by the supervisor. The accountant's competitive. That would stay.
I'm not sure what distinction you're making, so help me, please.
Go ahead.
It's still an appointment.
Under town law, the supervisor appoints their confidential secretary and the bookkeeper. Okay, and those are at will, so to speak. They're exempt positions in the civil service. Accountant is a competitive position in the civil service. It's the board that appoints.
Okay.
So the supervisor appoints, but the supervisor can't unilaterally approve a salary or perquisites or any of that. So it is a cooperative process, just like Debbie has authority to select who her clerks are, but she can't decide what to pay them, nor use her salary to pay them. It has to come to the board.
Right.
So you're sort of right. It's the same thing with the clerks for the court. It's a cooperative process. It's not unilateral.
Right, I think we ought to denote the ones that are slightly different and make it clear how that chain works in this, because I'm not always clear as to who gets to decide which positions are filled how. And I think if we're putting together an organizational chart, understanding that would be helpful to me.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure that's part of an org chart, because that's operational, and an org chart's just a map. That's like saying on a map, you want the directions from Albuquerque to Ithaca, and that's not what a map is supposed to do. But I understand what you're saying. If it's a multi-level document, you could have a forward-facing piece, and then click through a document, and there would be private layers underneath that you could see some of the standards for. But I think if you make too much spaghetti out of an org chart, it's not an org chart anymore, but not my place to say. I'll leave that to those who are building it.
Yeah. And I mean, we really need to rely on our HR support to guide us in the way of who's allowed to make the thing. But ultimately, every position comes back to the board. That's how we fund it, so.
I guess if people want to work for free, you don't have to approve it. I haven't found anybody yet that wants to donate every day, so donate their time every day.
So, and the one thing, I mean, there's solid lines and there's dotted lines, if that's what you want to call them. The solid lines are kind of where those departments kind of function. There's dotted lines between the town clerk department to the town supervisor and the public works department back to the town supervisor. That's just a day-to-day function of communication and collaboration. That's what that shows. And obviously there's dotted lines between our expectation for the director of parks and recreation and the highway superintendent, because they function so well together. And then also a dotted line kind of to that facilities maintenance supervisor aspect, because Pat's in control of some of the facilities, Mikey's in control of some of the facilities, so it all has to kind of work together. I mean, the biggest thing with an org chart is it's not necessarily who oversees each other, it's just kind of laid out as who's in what department. Doesn't necessarily mean that the town clerk oversees the deputy town clerk, and deputy town clerk oversees the admin, the information aides. It's just those are the positions. Tend to be a little hierarchical. Obviously, you have your laborers on the bottom and your working supervisors on top, kind of thing. So,
I know in the past we've had kind of co-positions in which someone works in the clerk's office and works in the planning office part-time. How does that fit into a chart like this?
I would say that's more done through budget and finance aspect of it, but, where is the position kind of sitting at that point? It's really the town clerks. If it gets shared with another department, it's really a funding source.
So what you're really saying is at some point they're sitting in this line and, on Thursday they're over in this line type thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Where I call them house accounts. Where's their house account? Their house account is town clerks, then that's.
You can see under town clerk information aid, and you can see under town court information aid, and at the moment, at least that's the same person. Most of the time that person is in my office, and then some of the time it's in their court office. And as Judy said, it's really a funding source. So the budget, so much is budgeted here and so much is budgeted there.
Okay, that makes sense to me, thank you.
So in all of these, you expect some collaboration in between the departments of what's needed. So I don't have all the FTEs, full-time equivalents listed in here. The only place I really tried to put some numbers in was for the motor equipment operators, just to try to figure out how many we actually had, and how many were under parks and how many were under the highway department. Just as I was trying to have some discussions of, proposing a public works department, what did that look like? Where did parks and recreation fit in with that? So that's why I was trying to figure out how many MEOs we have. But we do have 2 slated, my understanding is 2 slated for parks and something like 12 slated for highway at this point.
So you don't have a dotted line between Public Works Department and the highway at all? They're not connected?
No, it's just because there's no line there.
Okay.
Got a little line under Brooks, down to the highway superintendent, sorry.
Okay, that makes more sense then. So,
It's just floating out there.
yes, I saw,
It's an island, not a peninsula.
so if we decide that we need a second planner, that's just another
That's
person
just
in
a
a
two,
box? That's
yeah.
a 2 in the box, that doesn't take any extra changes or anything?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it takes changes from the board, hopefully, I don't know how you guys do things, but hopefully to create.
But it doesn't take a
like-
change in this chart?
It shouldn't, no.
Okay.
But, and that's, I mean, if in the ones in red, if down the road we say, no, we're never gonna get a network manager, then, you know, futuristic ones that can come out or be something different kind of thing. Those titles are not set in stone, I was just kind of throwing some titles out there that are available through civil service right now.
Is the network manager position through civil service?
These would be all through civil service.
Okay. Only because I sort of look at that and then I think about the work that at least I see Pat doing, and he's probably doing tons of other things too, that if we just apply or post a position for a network manager, Pat's got responsibility for IT security, for audiovisual support, and a number of other things that somebody who is qualified as a network manager might not have. And so we might want to look at, again, at that title, or at least maybe not the title, but the job description, so that we actually get somebody who's qualified to kind of do the overall, all-around job. And there, to be really honest, IT people tend to specialize, and getting somebody who can do it all is going to be a little tricky. So we're very lucky to have Pat and all the things that he's doing now, but I sort of look at what's required to be an IT professional who's doing the whole job of an entire IT organization at a larger facility, if we were a bigger organization than we are. And there's an awful lot that person really needs to know and be able to execute properly, particularly in the security field.
Yeah.
I think if we actually were trying to fill that position, it would be part-time shared with one or more other towns, and so instead of us taking the leap of hiring somebody full-time, 3 of us towns would get together and hire somebody part-time and work amongst us, because I don't think we've got the budget right now to hire an IT person full-time for the town.
That's probably true, and then the first thing they're going to say to us is, I need you all to be on the same systems in order for them to effectively administer them.
So, I mean, those are all futuristic conversations. When we get to a conversation of, is this the year to fill one of these positions? Then you work through the job description, the title, and just, kind of on the basis, some of these job descriptions are written for smaller organizations, so they do kind of encompass a lot more than what a network person that the county might do, so.
And there is also the option, if you get time, to write another job description that might be more encompassing. And if we can write it in a way that it could fit other towns, civil service is more likely, and state's more likely to approve that. But that sometimes is a long process, like years sometimes.
Yeah.
Unless it's during COVID, and I wrote my own for network specialist and took the test, but I failed. That went, that was within 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
So to Judy's point, I mean, if I like leaving the space for it, what we end up having or calling it is really going to depend on what's available in job descriptions through civil service. We can take a look at that.
Great, thank you for that clarification.
So I assume we've stuck in every conceivable thing that we might want in the future right now as a blank.
No, they're just kind of what has come out of personnel committee discussions and stuff like that. I mean, this is something that should be happening every year of where is our staffing, where are we planning on going with our staffing, what are we going to fill, what are we not going to fill, just as a future, just like we're talking about capital projects. Our thing is service, and we only provide service with people, so people is a kind of a big thing for us to know where we're going to go with it and how much we need to increase or change staff, So my hope is that at some point we will actually adopt an organizational chart, so that in the future when we do add a position or change a position, it becomes a newly adopted org chart, so it doesn't sit stale. It shouldn't sit stale. So that's kind of.
So what would be the next steps?
Well, today, I think I just wanted to put things as a working topic, to have conversation, to make sure the board was kind of up to speed on the conversations and where we're going, and then also have a conversation about the Public Works local law, draft local law. So if there's no more questions on the org chart, I'll talk about the local law.
I just wanted to ask, I know the staff have been involved in this, if they had any questions or concerns or thoughts about the proposed org chart?
Through it all pretty good.
Okay.
It was a topic at the Personnel Management Committee, so they
I'm
were all
sure.
involved in that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
I think that there's, to Judy's point, there's room to change, grow, whatever you need to do, so here it is in this form, and there's always room to expand if you need to. So, works for me.
Yeah, we discussed it in our legislative meeting. Added a few things, clarified a few things, so as far as I'm concerned, it seems good at the moment.
Okay?
So will this be a regular thing that we'll, like, towards the budget season, start looking at the org chart, just like we look at the 5-year plan, and just say, do we need to change it, does it need to be updated?
Especially as you're looking at new positions and stuff, what kind of positions you're putting in the budget, what, that aspect, yeah.
Okay,
Should,
I like that.
so. And definitely, as you do create a position, the org chart gets updated
Yeah.
at the same time, so. I mean, that, in one of your resolves, it could be update the org chart, and then the org chart gets updated, and that's it, so. I'm going to ask for Guy's help a little bit too, but one of the aspects that I was asked to look at is the highway department and whether that should become a public works department. I know from some of the history that this has been brought up and discussed several times over many years. So we are able to create a public works department. It does get to be done by local law due to being able to do it through municipal home rule law. Yeah. And so this is just a draft local law that would be passed. The pieces to it is creating it as a public works department. The laws there explain how we can do that. Transferring the highway department functions to the public works department. And then in 3, the responsibilities, it really goes through, especially A, what aspects is going to be under the envelope of the Public Works Department. So this is where I want to make sure that there's, the right conversations and what people are envisioning. These were where we've had conversations with Park and Recs at the same time. And I can certainly read it and go over it. But all of these have been kind of discussed between Parks and Rec and Public Works and how that was going to work together. I think the main thing is it was not enveloping Parks and Recreation underneath Public Works Department, but yet that they would be more collaborative in assisting with one another, sharing facilities and sharing staff and equipment as needed, and then working that together. And then the other aspects that go into this is who's responsible. Would we still have the highway superintendent be in charge? And that's number 4 that goes over that the elected highway superintendent should be the administrative head of the Public Works Department. And that kind of goes back to town law. That outlines the powers and duties of the highway superintendent. And then that would also keep the highway superintendent in the unclassified civil service classification, and still be an elected highway superintendent. I did include in there that they could have an informal title, which you'll also see on the org chart. I use kind of some AKA informal titles: Director of Public Works, Highway Superintendent, or Director of Public Works and / Highway Superintendent. So it doesn't matter There's certain things that Mikey would definitely have to sign as the highway superintendent, that's through law. There may be other things when he's working on sewer that makes more sense to be representative as the director of public works, depending on how it's going. So that would just give that role the ability to use whatever title is in there. And then number 5 just goes over the fact that the salary for the administrative head would continue to come out of the way it is right now, actually, coming out of the A fund, that it would not, or general fund, sorry, general fund, and then any of the improvement districts, that it wouldn't come out of the part-time or the whole DB or DA, sorry, fund. So those are just kind of the, I think, the different elements. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add that I...
Well, no, I mean, when you build a DPW local law, you sort of have two choices. One, get it built and keep it simple and do the rest through policies as it grows and you see what works and doesn't, or you can put a lot of bells and whistles in the local law and incorporate some of those policies. There are 3 or 4 or 5 different types of things that you can put into this. But, and Judy and I have discussed this, I've looked at this, I would recommend keeping it simple and then along the lines of what's here and then adopting policies and procedures. Once you have experience, see what you need, see what works, and then amend your code. It's better to add than it is to subtract, because I wouldn't want to, I mean, there are some good options that you can consider, but we're not really making it doesn't look like the town is making significant changes to its structure. It basically already has a DPW, it just hasn't adopted this local law. Our highway department functions well beyond what are simple highways. This seems to be more geared to recognizing what already exists, and I think it probably would be best to keep it simple and grow organically from there. But if the board wants to see some of those other options, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I can just give you a couple of sample local laws from other parts of the state. This format is very typical of this part of the state based on the size, density, and complexity of our towns. I could get you a sample from Long Island or the Capital District, and they're very different because what they deal with is very different. So it would be useful, but it wouldn't be apples to apples. So I sort of agree with Judy's approach. Well, not sort of, I do agree with Judy's approach.
I have a question. So when it comes to the pay, coming out of the general fund, and does the verbiage here, the improvement or benefit district of the town, does that encompass being able to pay a portion of that to the sewer for water funds? That's what that means. Okay, I just wanted to...
Yes, there would be aspects of the department that would be chargeable to particular special districts.
Right, okay.
And that could include facilities, salaries, obviously parts, materials, machinery, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the bond expenses of building a water district.
So I think part of it is just to be very clear, when somebody else wants to be the elected highway superintendent, that makes it very, very clear that you're not just responsible for the roads, you're responsible for all of this. Your pay comes from one big lump sum kind of thing. We're not going down the road of having somebody else do the water and sewer piece to it. This is one person, one head of the department kind of running everything. They can have working supervisors or whatever doing other aspects of it, but I think it's just really transparent to the community. When somebody goes to run for any of these elected positions, they know exactly what they're going to be encompassing and where the pay is coming from. So.
I've got a couple of questions. First off, if we adopt something like this, are we repealing parts of our law that are dealing with the highway department now?
Well, you mean in parts of the code?
Yeah. Are we taking out some of the highway department stuff and replacing it with this?
Well, I'm not aware that we have a lot in our town code on the highway department. It's not changing the function of the highway department. It's just placing additional work along with the normal highway function into a DPW. To a certain extent, this is just describing what we already have. So we can certainly look to see if there's anything that would be tweaked in the code, but any references in our code to the highway department or the highway superintendent would still be valid because it would be a dual titled position.
So when it says transferring the function, that means all the equipment, all the employees, everything that has been given to the highway department now, and we're just talking about changing the head's name, essentially.
Correct, and I think the phrase transferring the function is really referring to the authority given to the highway superintendent under both the town law and New York State highway law. That Mike is given certain authority by virtue of his position. All highway departments, elected or appointed, have this authority to make certain decisions, to manage certain funds and direct the highway workers, to protect the roads, to remove obstacles. The list of things that a highway superintendent actually might have to deal with, if you look at the New York State highway law, is staggeringly large. So you just want to make sure with a general broad brush, as Judy has drawn, that all of those functions now go to the DPW, so you don't have a problem with someone going, well, technically, that's the highway department, and you don't have a highway department. Yes, we do. It's part of our DPW.
So he's still going to sign the contract with us every year for roads, he's going to do
Yep.
all that stuff?
All of that's going to remain, is we're actually just sort of bringing the town code up to describe what already exists. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Well, and it also still makes it pretty clear that the highway superintendent's the one that can close the roads, can, declare an emergency. All of that is being still transferred still as part of this.
But if we took away any powers from the highway superintendent, this law would have to go to mandatory referendum.
Right.
So we're not looking to add or detract from any authority he has. We're just structuring the department differently.
Right.
So, just a question, far in the future, if we had someone who ran for the office and was only interested in the highway department job, but they got elected, what would we do?
They would now be responsible for this whole job.
Okay. And what if they didn't do it?
Well, if they're elected, they're accountable to the public.
Okay.
Unfortunately, means they still get paid, whether they show up to do the job or not.
I mean, we theoretically have that exact same problem now.
Not here.
I'm saying someone could get elected that doesn't know anything about trucks, machinery, roads, or highways.
Right.
I didn't mean that presently as you, but that does cause some confusion on that point, yes.
They only have to be
But,
18.
there are towns in this county that will remain nameless that have had that exact experience, where someone was, popular and got elected and didn't even know how to drive a truck, didn't have a license to drive a truck, didn't know anything about building roads, and some of them just muddled through for the 4 years and said, thank God the voters changed their minds.
We have a really strong
Sometimes the
deputy.
person's removed.
There is a process to remove somebody.
Very difficult.
It's very difficult, it has to be for something significant like malfeasance, malversion, there's all sorts of ancient legal terms for it, but it has to be a citizen's action in the appellate division. The town board can't even do it, because it's the voters that have enfranchised the person, so it's the voters that have to disenfranchise the person.
I mean, I'd add something. I mean, if you go back to Pete Larson, to Jack Branch, to Charlie Purcell, to myself, what issue has there been? All of them have worked well with the board. The same could be said about a board member who can be elected or a supervisor. But I mean, history shows that we've had good people here in Lansing. And they've kind of, with the exception of Pete, but he was in Ithaca and then came here, everyone else is kind of born through the system. So I think Mary Ellen and I have had the conversation of, is there that ability to groom that next person in-house to hopefully step up and carry that torch and be proud to serve Lansing. And that's the goal for me. I'm here for a while to do my best. hopefully you leave it well for somebody else, you get somebody else to want to do the job. But I think we've had a very good track record, just to settle your mind a little bit. I understand what you're saying, and it's probably nerve-wracking, but we've had a pretty good track record, I think.
Oh, yes, I wasn't disputing that at all. I was mostly concerned that the technical skills of the highway superintendent are not something present in every single person. And the same as, in many ways, the technical skills of the town clerk and the technical skills of the town supervisor are, 3 positions, but I would say probably the highway superintendent is one of the biggest of the elected positions, where knowing something about, how the roads work and how they have to be maintained and all the trucks, there's more technical knowledge there than just necessarily exists in anybody who runs for office. So that, and I was just wondering what one does, and Guy talked about it a little bit. So that was just education for me, not any particular worry that that's going to happen in this town, or because we changed the org chart. I was just wondering what happens if that does happen, and I'm just sort of curious. So anyway.
Yeah, well, you could always change the org chart if that happened too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't think the org chart's going to fix it. As you say, it could happen now, it could have happened
It could.
anywhere.
This discussion's been going on last year and the year before. I think Ron and Joe and Guy and myself were talking, and I think Guy kind of spoke to that. The conversation was born from that, and it was to the point of changing that org chart if something like that was to happen.
So my understanding, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, we hire somebody who only knows highways, doesn't want to deal with anything else. The board could split that into 2 positions, have a highway superintendent and have a director of public works that's separate doing the other half of the job.
I don't know why you would do that.
Because someone's not doing the stuff that needs to be done, and we figure that's the way to do it. We could. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying we have that ability to separate them.
What we're saying with this is that when the elected highway superintendent runs for election, this is what they're taking on. This makes it very clear to them, where it might not have been as clear to Lucky or Cricket or whatever, that, I'm going to be doing all of this. But this clears that aspect up. You're running for election, this is what the town of Lansing's expecting you to do. So, and for the rate that we are already putting in the budget, that we can't change. Can change, but can't change all at the same time. Very difficult.
Joe, you're right, you could change it, but it's not something that you can just, you'd have local laws, you'd have referenda, there would be a fair amount to that. So if you look at the longer term, and let's say the population of the town doubles in 20 years, then you may be in a position where you do have someone who's independently running water and sewer and stormwater as a department head in DPW under the highway superintendent. But again, that would be more of an organic, let's see where it goes, keep an eye on the chart, what positions do we need to fulfill the future needs of the town.
Right. So process-wise, this would have to be a public hearing, it would have to, all of the same things that a normal local law would have to have. So just hoping that we can do it.
Okay.
It would be nice to start out in January as a public works department.
Well, my understanding from what happened last year is we don't want to pass a local law like this in December because it's hard to get that all codified, right?
We did have a big mess. I think that was really because it was I don't know if it was last year or the year before, it was the cannabis one, and there was a 30-day waiting period. And so the 30 days moved into January, so when the law was actually sent into the state, now we're in January, and we had to redo the local laws because the local law was 23, let's say, because it was in the year 23, but really now it really is totally passed in 24 once we got past the 30-day period. So We don't want
Wanna
to
do
do that in
that.
December if there's a 30-day waiting period.
Okay, so that was the issue, okay, I didn't
Right, as
understand.
long as there isn't a waiting period that would go from 1 year to the next year, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay,
And just to be clear, that's not a problem that exists in the law, that's a problem that exists due to administrative fiat. The local law is valid when adopted, the filing of the local law is purely ministerial. It should not have been rejected simply because the calendar turned, because the date the town board adopted it is when it became a local law. But,
New York State thought differently, apparently.
well, they did legalize cannabis, so we know one department that's smoking it.
Anyways, moving on.
Created a lot of extra work on our part. that's for sure.
so we should expect to see the org chart and this law with some little bit of numbers added to it and stuff coming to us sometime in the near future?
Well, I would ask if people have seen it enough, if it could go on to the November agenda.
That's what I was going to suggest.
I'm for it,
I'm for it, too.
I think it's a go.
with one little line added in it.
Could I add one thing that's sort of related, because it's related to the DPW and the new facility, actually? I think everybody was expecting that it would be highway and parks would be moving to the new facility, but we've had a suggestion that may change that a little bit. We were thinking maybe instead of parks going up there is having the planning department, codes department go up there. There's several reasons. One, it would be $500,000 savings on our new building because we would not need two storage stalls to accommodate the Parks Department. So that would cut off about $500,000 on the building. But the other reason is that we feel like codes and planning works more closely with Highway Department than the Parks does. Parks is really kind of their own thing. So I just wonder if there was any input from anybody on that concept.
Well, I think another thing is to talk about the customers of each of those groups. The customers of the Parks Department are typical citizens with kids and stuff, and mixing them with the Highway Department trucks and equipment is not as good a mix as having them here, whereas the folks who are going to codes are generally contractors who are used to working around heavier equipment. So I think there's a safety issue, there's an hours issue that I think plays in. I know Parks uses the building right next to their fields, and so having their department move, even half a mile away would be more shuffling back and forth than would be necessary with it here. So I think it makes sense.
And you have enough storage here for this, or?
Yeah, I mean, this building's not big enough for what we have currently, but it works. I'm honestly, we've had this I've been bounced back and forth 20 times throughout lately, so I'm sort of indifferent to the whole idea. I do see pros and cons on both sides. It's really up to the board, I guess, and if it's a $500,000 savings like I told Ruth, I mean, that's pretty substantial savings at this point to the taxpayers for us to stay where we're currently at, so.
I would assume you would get some of the codes department space that's here.
Right.
Yeah, however that works out, I don't know. I mean, none of us know yet, but it's been discussed that we may move into those offices, may not. I have no idea, but yeah, I would think it would free up some space.
Want to see if anybody had any opinions on that.
Yeah, I don't really, it's an interesting question because I thought the whole sort of purpose of the synergies between the Department of Public Works and Parks and Recreation and the Highway Department was potentially about sharing equipment. I may have misunderstood, but, I hear what you're saying about having Parks and Recreation close to the spaces that you maintain, and also the safety issue, that is a big deal about having little kids running around big trucks and more industrial level equipment. So yeah, I can see exactly what Pat's saying about sort of the pros and cons of each. And I just, I'm just sort of trying to think about, this seems pretty good. The $500,000 savings, of course, is very appealing. And the question, I guess, of is this where we want to be in the long term? And I guess, I can see really good arguments on both sides. Does anybody, it's like we're trying to think 10, 20 years down the road, is this where we want to be?
My 2 cents is, originally the idea was to have park and rec move on. If you're actually going to be a DPW and function like one, that would be underneath the head of DPW, the highway superintendent, which is not what's before you today, right? So whether it's parks and rec moving up there or code, their own department. So the idea was, at one point in time, to actually create what once was in the 90s. But we're not doing that. So to me, whichever department comes up there, I do work with both. They're both their own directors, so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Are we losing anything by doing it this way?
Not with your current staffing, but obviously we work very well together and share equipment as we need it, more us needing stuff from them than them then needing stuff from us. But I don't think we lose anything. Like I said, you can go kick it back and forth 1,000 times, and it's really only based on location. I mean, there's pros and cons to the location part of it, there's pros and cons to the space, but again, $500,000 savings to the taxpayers is pretty substantial.
I mean, for the most part, I'm working with, I think with Pat, as you and I spoke, it's personnel, right? And equipment is how we work, and John, it's collaboration on what's coming into the town, what's being built. I'm the maintenance guy for it. My department is, so sitting in with engineering, legal, and planning and saying what's coming in, how do we want this to look? So whether it's solar, I sit in on that, whether it's sewer district 1, whether it's the water districts. I work a lot with that department as well, so I can see, I agree with that, I can see the pros and cons to both. It's really a board decision, but if we could decide, that would help me kind of work, and the highway department committee, work with Gordon and Colliers and continue on the process of what they need in design development and schematic design. No pressure.
I was just going to say, we need to stop undeciding and deciding all at the same time and make a decision, because every time we turn around, we're changing something or making another decision, which is why the highway garage has not been done in the last 5 years. So at some point, we gotta, stop chasing the cat and just make a decision, and that's the way it's gonna be, and stop second guessing what's the next best issue. And that's just
I think the
Just my 2
biggest
cents.
thing for me was, I didn't have a problem going or not going, but if we couldn't take all of our equipment, it just didn't make sense. If that was gonna stay here, and we were just gonna move move offices up there, that just didn't make any rational sense to do that. That would have made us really inefficient. So, I think if that's the case now, where it's being pulled out completely, I think it makes more sense for us to stay here.
And it is, and there's a lot to it. It's not really, to your point, there's a little bit, but it's also, okay, if we're gonna pull out those 4 bays that, it's $1 million for them. Sign bay, water bay, sewer bay, and then, parks, however doesn't matter. It's $1 million for all 4. If that's off the table, we're gonna do it, we're gonna try to put it in as, if the bid comes in, great, we'll do an add-on, right? Killing that a little bit, guy, but to the point, then we are looking at what facilities and buildings we have that we can make usable for Pat and to store your baseball, your soccer, your LSP and everything else, and it's looking at the old Vesta building, and what can we do there? So, trying to make everything work, and if you have everything here and it can be used, and then you just make it office space, that kind of made sense. There's just no guarantee on those 4 bays of making it through the bid process. Not really. We'll know on bid opening, I believe.
But you're planning for extra office space then for the code office to go up there? You're planning for extra office space for the code office because they have 5 people in that office.
There's plenty of room up there for them.
Okay.
There's extra rooms, as a matter of fact. There's a, what do you call it, a build-out area where they
It's like a flex space, but I
Flex
mean,
space, yeah.
really to accommodate what Pat had wanted. You know, code and planning can fit right there, and there's still flex space where another 4 offices can go, making sure we have room for the future. So,
Okay. So I just want to get that out there, that that's sort of in
Well,
the
can we
works
make a
right now.
decision? Quite frankly.
I'm not a decision, I just wanted to hear.
Okay. So the decision is that Parks is staying here and planning and code enforcement's going up there. Is that our decision?
I'm in favor. And I've talked with John, and he's fine with it too, in case anyone had any
My
reservations.
decision, but I'm not the board, so it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Unless anybody had any objections, that's, you know, I think that's where we're headed.
Sounds that way.
$7.5 million. Okay.
Could we back up for a minute?
Sure.
You quickly glazed over for the November agenda about the local law and stuff. What is it that you're expecting to have on that November agenda? A public hearing?
Public hearing.
You're ready for the, so is, what's in this packet tonight, is that the actual local law? Because we need to have that prior to, so many days prior to the public hearing. So
I guess I'd have to ask God, because I put some things as draft kind of aspect of things and no numbers, and because I don't know what they would
Well,
be.
the general rule is you should have a local law in final form at the time that you issue the notice of public hearing, so that when people ask for a copy, you have it. The local law under the municipal home rule law will just say, not deal with all the nuances and say you have to publish and post at least 5 days before the public hearing. We have plenty of time to fill in those blanks and get it to you so you can advertise for November.
okay.
I think the biggest question is, what chapter do you want to put it in? And I can give you an opinion, or you can pick one and throw it at me, and we'll make sure it fits.
That's a you guys thing.
I'm just,
I just put a lot of X's where I figured somebody else would fill in.
okay, so Guy will finish this up, let's say. I was going to say pretty enough, but whatever. And then, okay, so November, whatever meeting that is, not the 6th, the regular meeting, right?
I'm expecting Guy to add some nice illustrations to it.
Yes, I could see some block lettering,
So public hearing.
November
mid-alphabetic
20th.
stuff.
Is it 20th? So you're going to have a public hearing and adopt, and a resolution to adopt it? Okay, just so I know what to put on here.
Are we going to do the org chart at the same time?
I would hope that we would after the,
But that's not a local law, that's a resolution.
no, it's just a resolution
Okay.
accepting, acknowledging, whatever you want to use.
We're going to do that too. Resolution to accept the org chart. Are you ready to make that?
If that's what you want me to draft.
I mean, you could draft one
I
too.
could draft it, but
Oh, yeah, Judy drafted.
Yeah. I don't think there's any voodoo to that one.
I'm sure she's drafted other ones, and she'll just take one of the old ones and put Lansing instead of somewhere else.
That's what I do.
That's what most people do.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I must say, I'm really excited at getting organizational chart in this Public Works Department moving forward. I appreciate the hard work you and staff have been doing on this.
You did a great job.
That's not a word I would use.
Started in 2003, so somebody finally brought it home.
well, thanks to Ariel and the rest of the staff for kind of giving me where we're at. put it all together, so. Good.
I believe we need to go to an executive session.
Okay.
Number 8, collective bargaining negotiations for Article 14, or the civil service law.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Who did you want to stay for that discussion?
Oh, just the board members.
Okay.
Mike, I can, oh, Mike, you can stay too if you
You
want.
want Guy, right? Okay.
I can stay. I can stay.
Partner.
Sure.
You don't have to.
It's up to you.
So you're
If you want.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary Ellen, for everything
Okay,
you've done.
go out there, wait. Figures, finally get an early stop.